Hello, can you hear me? Was having trouble getting this thing started because of the thing that I set up before. I don't know, it was boomer technical trouble, but now it works, so that's good. We'll give it some time to see if we can get people to come back on. Hello, everybody who's joined. Because we had some technical trouble and got started late, I'm going to wait a little bit just to make sure we get some stragglers in before we get started. Trying out a new setup or a new angle anyway. I don't know how this is going to work. I'm trying to find a way to have me and the Buddha in the same picture and not have the Buddha cut off, but this is the way it is. So I'll after one of these days, I'll figure it out. All right, I think I'll get started with the traditional chant in the beginning, and I think we're going to do some chants from Abhayagiri. I mean, they're Pali. It's Pali, but these are from the Maggaseka chanting book that I compiled, and some of the Abhayagiri chants. So I'm going to do a couple in a row, but we're going to start with reflections on universal well-being. Going to do the Pali and then the English, and then we'll get started. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. All right. Okay. Handamaihang metta paranang karomasi. Ahang sukito homi nidukko homi avero homi abhyapajo homi anigho homi sukhi atanang pariharami. Sabbe satta sukita hantu sabbe satta avera hantu sabbe satta abhyapaja hantu sabbe satta anigha hantu sabbe satta sukhi atanang pariharantu sabbe satta sabba dukkha pamucchantu sabbe satta ladha sampattito ma vigachantu sabbe satta kamassaka kamassadayada kammayoni kamma bandhu kamma patisarana yang kammang karissanti kalyanang vapapakang va tassadaya do bhavisamiti. Now the English. Now let us chant the reflections on universal well-being. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their actions and inherit its results. Their future is born from such an action, companion to such an action, and its result will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs. So that's the first one. Then let's do another one. So this is what I'm going to chant here is essentially the in the suttas, the stock phrasing of how to practice metta. You'll see, you might not know the Pali, but when I get to the English, most of you will probably recognize it. Handamayang chatu paramanya ubhasanang karomasi mase metta sahagatena cetasa ekang disang paritva viharati tatta duttiyang tatta tattiyang tatta chattutang itti uddhamado tiriyang sabbaddi sabbattaya sabbattavantang lokang metta sahagatena cetasa vipulana mahaggatena appamanena avarena abhyapajena paritva viharati karuna sahagatena cetassa ekang dissang paritva viharati tatta duttiyang tatta tattiyang tatta chattutang iti uddhamado tiriyang sabbaddi sabbattaya sabbavantang lokang karuna sahagatena cetassa vipulena mahaggatena appamanena averena abhyapajena paritva viharati mudita sahagatena cetassa ekang disvang paritva viharati tatta duttayang tatta tattayang tatta chattutang iti uddhamado tiriyang sabbaddi sabbattitaya sabbatavantang lokang mudita sahagatena cetassa vipulena mahagatena appamanena averena abhyapajena paritva viharati upekka sahagatena cetassa ekang disvang paritva viharati tatta duttayang tatta tatayang tatta chattutang iti uddhamando tiriyang sabbaddi sabbattaya sabbavantang lokang upekka sahagatena cetassa vipulena mahagatena appamanena averena abhyapajena paritva viharati. All right, so now the English. Now let us make the four boundless qualities shine forth. I will abide pervading one quarter with a heart imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, and all around, above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all and to, okay, this is a translation I'm not familiar with, so I'm going to have to make sure the translations in my head don't come popping out. So above, below, around, and everywhere, to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world with a heart imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter with a heart imbued with compassion, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading in the all-encompassing world with a heart imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter with a heart imbued with gladness or appreciative joy. So we're talking about mudita. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, and all around, above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world with a heart imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter with a heart imbued with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, and all around, above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world with a heart imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. All right, friends. So that is our beginning chant, as we have been doing as a tradition. Do a little bit of chanting right in the beginning to get things started out in the right way. So friends, let's see. Okay, I don't see too much. Nothing's in the chat, so I didn't miss anything, which is good. So welcome to Dhammapalooza. You know how it is. Most of you have probably been here before, have done a Dhammapalooza before. I don't see anybody that I'm not familiar with. There might be, because it doesn't show up. So if you've never been to Dhammapalooza before, essentially what we're doing here is a 2-hour party of Dhamma. So this is includes usually chanting and sutta reading, discussion, question and answers, guided meditation, stuff like that. So what I like to do is I like to kind of let the community guide it, right? I always have stuff backed up just in case the community falls through. But I like to let the community guide it. So if you have any topics you'd like me to talk about, if you'd have any topics you'd like the group of us to talk about, like have a community discussion, that's good. If you have any questions you'd like to put up or anything like that, you're welcome to do it. Anybody who's in the chat. Otherwise, I have a very interesting sutta that to go through. That it's from the Majjhima Nikaya. It is a middle length one, so it'll take up a good chunk of time if nobody else comes up with anything. And crickets filled the room. All right. So then let's see about going with our sutta. Oh, Adriana says, maybe some words on right effort in lay life. I feel like that's been something I've really been trying to focus on. That might be answered in our sutta. So let's go through the sutta because it's really interesting stuff. And if it's not sufficiently answered, I'll talk about it after. Those of you who'd like to follow along, here's the link. So Adriana's question was, maybe some words on right effort in lay life. I feel like it's been something I've really been trying to focus on. Yes, right effort's very important. So, anyone else nervous for this sutta, Adriana says. No, this is fun. This is one of those that has good Dhamma and also some really unique, interesting things that make you go, huh? And you're like, does anybody actually know about this stuff or what this means? So this should be a fun sutta for us. With Kandaraka. This is Majjhima Nikaya number 51. I'm going to grab some water. I'm a little dehydrated today. So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying at near Champa on the banks of the Gaggara lotus pond. There's right off the bat, it's interesting, right? Because I don't think that this is this location appears too much in the suttas. I'm not confident enough to say this is the only time it appears, but it's pretty rare. On the banks of the Gaggara lotus pond, together with a large sangha of mendicants. Then Pessa, the elephant driver's son, and Kandaraka, the wanderer, went to see the Buddha. So when we talk about, when it says wanderer, this means that there are fellow samana, so they're a wanderer, they've given up their household life and they're wandering in whatever, they're a part of the many different sects that are there, but they're not a Buddhist. They're not a Buddhist wanderer. So that's why they will say just a wanderer. They went to see the Buddha. When they had approached, Pessa bowed down onto one side, but the wanderer Kandaraka exchanged greetings with the Buddha and stood to one side. See, so this means that the Kandaraka withheld his full devotional greeting to the Buddha. He's like, okay, well, let's see. Let's question this guy here. He looked around the mendicant sangha who were so very silent and said to the Buddha, "It's incredible, Master Gautama. It's amazing how the mendicant sangha has been led to practice properly by the Master Gautama. All the perfected ones, the fully awakened Buddhas in the past or the future, who lead the mendicant sangha to practice properly, will at best do so like Master Gautama does in the present." That's so true, Kandaraka. That's so true. All the perfected ones, the fully awakened Buddhas in the past or the future, who lead the mendicant sangha to practice properly, will at best do so like I do in the present. For in this mendicant sangha, there are perfected mendicants who have ended the defilements, completed the spiritual journey, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, achieved their own goal, utterly ended the fetters of rebirth, and are rightly freed through enlightenment. And in this mendicant sangha, there are trainee mendicants who are consistently ethical, living consistently alert, living consistently alert, living alertly. They meditate with their minds firmly established in the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. What for? There you go, Adriana. Be like a trainee who are consistently ethical, living consistently alert. That's right effort right there. They meditate with their minds firmly established in Satipatthana, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. What for? It's when a mendicant meditates by observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. They meditate observing an aspect of feelings, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. They meditate observing an aspect of the mind, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. They meditate observing an aspect of principles, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. When he had spoken, Pessa said to the Buddha, "It's incredible, sir. It's amazing how much the Buddha has clearly described the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. They are in order to purify sentient beings, to get past sorrow and crying, to make an end of pain and sadness, to end the cycle of suffering, and to realize extinguishment. For we white-clothed lay people also from time to time meditate with our minds well established on the 4 foundations of mindfulness." See, even the lay people, no excuses. Practice 4 foundations, Adriana, and everybody else, obviously, of course. We meditate observing an aspect of the body, feeling, mind, principles, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of desire and aversion for the world. It's incredible, dear sir. It's amazing how the Buddha knows what's best for sentient beings, even though people continue to be so shady. You can tell this is a Bhante Sujato translation, because you've never seen shady. People are shady. This is definitely a modern translation. Even though people continue to be shady, rotten, and tricky, for human beings are shady, sir, while the animal is obvious. For I can drive an elephant in training, and while going back and forth in Champa, it will try all the tricks, bluffs, ruses, and feints that it can. But my slaves, employees, and workers have one way. But my slaves, employees, and workers behave one way by body, another by speech, and their minds another. It's incredible, sir. It's amazing how the Buddha knows what's best for sentient beings, even though people continue to be so shady, rotten, and tricky. Tricksties. For human beings are so shady, sir, while the animal is obvious. This kind of reminds me of like these modern, like the modern concept of people would be like, I hate all human beings, but I love cats and dogs, right? And they kind of have this this mindset, right? Like human beings are capable of such and such, but cats and dogs, they have unconditional love. That is until you die, and then they eat you because they're stuck in the house. But at least in our minds, we think it's unconditional love. But this is when I see this is what it reminds me of, this kind of feeling of like justification for hating human beings, right? Well, the thing is, if animals had the same capabilities, the same consciousness, the same ability to practice that we do, then they would do good and bad as well. The animals would not be perfect beings either. Oh, maybe somebody already left, so maybe they don't like. But it's not a matter of disliking animals. It's a matter of also understanding humans and giving humans the benefit of the doubt. And here comes the Buddha. That's so true, Pessa. That's so true. For human beings are shady, while the animal is obvious. Pessa, these 4 people are found in the world. What 4? Now here's where it gets interesting. One person mortifies themselves. So to mortify is like to flagellate, to harm yourself, to be an ascetic, to, and you'll see the things like, when the Buddha, only ate 1 grain of rice, and he could, feel his spine through his stomach and all that kind of stuff. And he did those 6 years. This is what they're talking about when one mortifies, right? What one person, so there's 4 types of people. One person mortifies themselves, committed to practice of mortifying themselves. They really like it. One person mortifies others, committed to the practice of mortifying others. One person mortifies themselves and others, committed to the practice of mortifying themselves and others. One person doesn't mortify either themselves or others, committed to the practice of not mortifying themselves or others. They live without wishes in this present life, extinguished, cooled, experiencing bliss, having become holy in themselves. And the Buddha says, which of these four people do you like the sound of? And Betsy goes, sir, I don't like the sound of the first three people. I only like the sound of the last person, who doesn't mortify either themselves or others. But why don't you like the sound of those three people? Sir, the person who mortifies themselves does so even though they want to be happy and recoil from pain. So with meaning that they like to experience pleasure and they don't like to experience pain. They like good things, they don't like bad things, right? So President is saying, even though people like good things, don't like bad things, they still mortify themselves. That's why I don't like the sound of that person. The person who mortifies others does so even though others want to be happy and recoil from pain. That's why I don't like the sound of that person. The person who mortifies themselves and others does so even though both themselves and others want to be happy and recoil from pain. So we get the gist here, right? That's why I don't like the sound of that person. The person who doesn't mortify either themselves or others, living without wishes, extinguished, cooled, experiencing bliss, having become holy in themselves, does not torment themselves or others, both of whom want to be happy and recoil from pain. That's why I like the sound of that person. Well now, sir, I must go. I have many duties and much to do. This is the very common refrain from lay people who are leaving the Buddha. Time for me to go. I have many duties and much to do. Then not long after he had left, the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicant, Pessa, the elephant driver's son, was astute. He has great wisdom. If he had sat here a little longer so that I could have analyzed these four people in detail, he would have greatly benefited. Still, even with this much, he has already greatly benefited. There's the Buddha praising a layperson's wisdom to the mendicants, right? Now is the time, blessed. Now they respond. Now is the time, blessed one. Now is the time, holy one. May the Buddha analyze these four people in detail. The mendicants will listen and remember it. Well then, mendicants, listen and pay close attention. I will speak. Yes, sir, they replied. The Buddha said this. And what person mortifies themselves? And by the way, for those of you who are actually in the chat, see, this is the sad thing about everybody who comes to Dhammapalooza. This is why this should encourage you to register for a YouTube account so you can come in and talk with us. And the same thing at like Buddhist Insights. There's many different Buddhist monasteries and monastics and bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. They all do these things, right? And so you could interact with them in the chat. So I highly encourage to log in and to get an account just so that you could do that. You don't need an account to watch political or cat videos, but to talk to the monastics and to take part in good Sangha community, it's good. All right. And what person mortifies themselves, committed to the practice of mortifying themselves? And now here we go. The Buddha's going to give a list. It's when somebody goes naked ignoring conventions. So many of these things are different practices that different ascetic wanderers did at the time of the Buddha. Some of them even today. You could go to India and see people doing these same things 2,600 years later, including naked ascetics. It's when somebody goes naked and ignoring conventions, they lick their hands and don't come or wait when asked. They don't consent to food brought to them, or food prepared for them, or an invitation for a meal. They don't receive anything from a pot or bowl, or from someone who keeps sheep, or who has a weapon or a shovel in their home, or where a couple is eating, or where there is a woman who is pregnant, breastfeeding, or who has a man in her home, or where there's a dog waiting or flies buzzing. So this is like, could you imagine if Buddhist monks, we came into the village and we're like, oh, well, now I'm not going to this house because of this. I'm not going to that house because of this. No, I'm sorry. I know you want to, I practice dana, but now you have a shovel. So I'm not going to allow you to, I'm not going to take anything from you. Right. So this is all these different practices. And the Buddha says that these are basically, he's saying they're silly. You're mortifying yourselves by doing these practices. Right. And some of these have to do with the purity and disgust. So like the purity and disgust, purity and dirtiness things, that are pretty universal in human culture, that there are things that are dirty and there are things that are pure. And you're trying to stay away from things that are dirty or things that could ruin some kind of purity, right? Because then you're going to see here coming up with somebody who bathes 3 times a day. Could you imagine bathing 3 times a day? Well, let's see. Or where there's a dog waiting or flies buzzing, they accept no fish or meat or liquor or wine, and drink no beer. They go to just one house for alms, taking just one mouthful, or 2 mouthfuls, or 1 mouthful, or 2 houses and 2 mouthfuls, up to 7 houses and 7 mouthfuls. They feed on 1 saucer a day, 2 saucers a day, up to 7 saucers a day. They eat once a day, once every second day, up to once a week, and so on. Even up to once a fortnight. Sounds like what the Buddha was doing, right? With his 1 grain of rice a day. You might as well eat once every 2 weeks. Enough grains every 2 weeks, you maybe get a handful of rice, right? They live committed to the practice of eating food at set intervals. They eat herbs, millets, wild rice, poor rice, water lettuce, rice bran, scum from boiling rice, sesame flour, grass, or cow dung. They survive on forest roots and fruits, or eating fallen fruit. So notice all of these, there's nothing particularly wrong with any of these per se, because some of these actually Buddhist monks do. It's a matter of like focusing in on this is the only thing that they do, right? Like they're just super focused on doing this and not allowing all this other stuff, right? Now, of course, I'm pretty sure it's in the rule somewhere not to eat cow dung for the monks. I can't guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure in there. All right. They survive on forest roots and fruits or eating fallen fruit. They wear robes of sun hemp, mixed hemp, coarse wrapping cloth, rags, load tree bark, antelope hide, whole or in stripes, kusa grass, bark, wood chips. This I do know. Monks are not allowed to have to make robes made out of grass and wood chips and bark and things like that. That is definitely a monastic rule. Human hair, horse hair, or owl's wings. They tear out their hair and beard, committed to this practice. They constantly stand refusing seats, or they squat, committed to the endeavor of squatting. You ever see, like, I can remember watching the History Channel and stuff when I was younger, like of India, and you go to India and you'll see like there's dudes that like they put their hand up and like they've done it for like 20 years, right? So the hand is actually atrophied. They can't even move the hand, right? They do like this person they're talking about committed to the practice of squatting. So they would just be squatting down. I don't know how they would move around. Maybe like a what you call it, like a duck walk. But okay, so they squat, committed to the endeavor of squatting. They lay on a mat of thorns, making a mat of thorns their bed. Remember, Buddha tried all these things, right? So the Buddha already from the beginning in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, he says that this is an extreme that is useless, like a lot of these extreme things. They lie on a mat of thorns, making a mat of thorns their bed. They're committed to the practice of immersion in water 3 times a day. There's your bathing 3 times a day, including the evening. And so they live committed to practicing these various ways of mortifying and tormenting the body. This is called a person who mortifies themselves, being committed to the practice of mortifying themselves. And what person mortifies others? Committed to the practice of mortifying others. It's when a person is a slaughterer of sheep, pigs, or poultry, a hunter or a trapper, a fisher, a bandit, an executioner, a butcher, a jailer, or someone with some other kind of cruel livelihood. This is called a person who mortifies others, being committed to the practice of mortifying others. And what person mortifies themselves and others? And by the way, also, for those of you who are new, you can always feel free to type in the chat while I'm talking. It doesn't interrupt me, and it keeps track. Like if you have a question about something I've read, I do try to stop every once in a while to make a comment and see if there are any comments or something for me to clarify. But for now, we'll continue on. And what person mortifies themselves and others? Being committed to the practice of mortifying themselves and others. It's when a person is an anointed king. The jailer bit. Yeah. One thing I would say is that you gotta understand. I wouldn't necessarily equate it to like being a corrections officer today per se, because back then you're talking about jailers. Like jailers, are like torturing the people in the jail, right? They're like literally like putting them like, like if you like in the Middle Ages, if you went, if you were in a prison and you got all the torture methods, it was the jailers doing it. The executioner came for the final act, for when it was time for you to die. But otherwise, the jailers are putting you through all kinds of torture. One of the things that I do, and let's not get into, I'm delving into this topic only because it's an interesting thing that points out. Okay, yeah, I'm going to do it because technically it's about vegetarianism. So let's not get into. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But they have an interesting thing as where, see, somebody who torments themselves, and it's under tormenting yourself is not accepting meat. Interesting. So if somebody gives you meat, right, not accepting it is a tormenting. But somebody who torments others is killing animals for meat. Very interesting, right? So that's an interesting distinction that can help you understand why the rules are the way they are, even though modern times and modern sensibilities don't care for that. So let's continue on here. Acid pickles galore. All right. So they mortify themselves and others, being committed to the practice. It's when a person is an anointed king or a well-to-do Brahmin. He has a new temple built in the east of the city. He shaves off his hair and beard, dresses in a rough antelope hide, and smears his body with ghee, which is butter, and oil. Scratching his back with antlers, he enters the temple with his chief queen and the Brahmin high priest. There he lies on the bare ground strewn with grass. The king feeds on the milk from one teat of a cow, teat of a cow that has a calf of the same color. The chief queen feeds on the milk from the second teat. The Brahmin high priest feeds on the milk from the third teat. And the milk from the fourth teat is offered to the flames. The calf feeds on the remainder. Yeah, see, that is interesting, right? This is one of the things I'd say, like, I love these suttas because they have such interesting, what would you say, anthropological value. And you kind of, and again, the Buddha is saying that this is tormenting oneself, going through these rituals. Let me smear myself with butter and drink milk out of the teat of a cow. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Okay, where was I here? All right. And so that's the tormenting yourselves, but now we go to tormenting others. Briar arose. The flame was very important in Aggi. Was very important in the ancient Brahmanical traditions. Like they kept the flame alive, like an eternal flame. They worship to the flame. You're going to see just in a second here what they do. So slaughter this many bulls, bullocks, heifers, goats, rams, and horses for the sacrifice, sacrificing to the flame. Fell this many trees and reap this much grass for the sacrificial equipment. His slaves, employees, and workers do their jobs under threat of punishment and danger, weeping with tearful faces. This is called a person who mortifies themselves and others, being committed to the practice of mortifying themselves and others. So this flame is and so that you'll see in the suttas where the Buddha, with many things, he kind of plays on words and switches meanings around, or adapts something from the Brahmanical tradition to the Buddhist tradition, right? He'll use similes, and so the flame is something that is actually quite common, especially in when the Buddha uses like the simile of the lamp and the flame going out, which is like an awakened being. When they've ended their last body, parinibbana, they've become extinguished, right? So there's lots of flame symbology, and it's because of that, this worshiping the fire god, Aggi, stuff from the Brahmins back in the day. And so we see that the king not only mortified himself, but he offered a bunch of, ordered a bunch of stuff, animals be sacrificed, killed, and then the people who had to do it were not too happy about it either, because they actually they killed, right? This is why it says that they weeping with tearful faces. And what person doesn't mortify either themselves or others, but lives without wishes? Extinguished, cooled, extinguished. What's extinguished? The flame. That's right. The third discourse of the Buddha, everything is on fire. The eye is on fire. The ear is on fire, right? And on fire with the fire of craving. extinguished, cooled, experiencing bliss, have become holy in themselves. It's when a realized one arises in the world, perfected, a fully awakened Buddha, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy, knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to be trained, teacher of gods and humans, awakened, blessed. He has realized with his own insight this world with its gods, Maras and Brahmas, this population with its ascetics and Brahmins, gods and humans, and he makes it known to others. He teaches a Dhamma that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, meaningful and well phrased. And he reveals a spiritual practice that's entirely full and pure. A householder hears that teaching, or a householder's child, or someone reborn in some clan. They gain faith in the realized one and reflect. Living in a household is cramped and dirty, but the life of one gone forth is wide open. It's not easy for someone living at home to lead the spiritual life full and pure, like a polished shell. Why don't I shave off my hair and beard, dress in ochre robes, and go forth from the lay life to homelessness? After some time, they give up a large or a small fortune and a large or a small family circle. They shave off their hair and beard, dress in ochre robes, and go forth from lay life to the homelessness. Once they've gone forth, they take up training and livelihood of mendicants. They give up killing living creatures, renouncing the rod and the sword. They're scrupulous and kind, living full of compassion for all living beings. They give up stealing. Sounding familiar? So far, the precepts. They take only what is given and expect what's given. They keep themselves clean by not thieving. They give up unchastity. Okay, now this is not from the 5 precepts. From the 8 precepts, yes. They are celibate, set apart, avoiding the common practice of sex. They give up lying. They speak the truth and stick to the truth. They're honest and trustworthy, and don't trick the world with their words. They give up divisive speech. They don't repeat in one place what they have heard in another, so as to divide people against each other. Instead, they reconcile those who are divided, supporting unity, delighting in harmony, loving harmony, speaking words that promote harmony. They give up harsh speech. They speak in a way that's mellow. There's another Bhante Siddhartha translation right there. Mellow. Although that's not modern. That's like from the 60s. Pleasing to hear, lovely, going to the heart, polite, likable, and agreeable to the people. They give up talking nonsense. Their words are timely, true, and meaningful, in line with the teaching and the training. They say things at the right time, which are valuable, reasonable, succinct, and beneficial. They avoid injuring plants and seeds. They eat in one part of the day, abstaining from eating at night, and food at the wrong time. They avoid dancing, singing, music, and seeing shows. They avoid beautifying and adorning themselves with garlands, perfumes, and makeup. They avoid high and luxurious beds. These are all Apostita precepts. Those of you who've taken the Apostita precepts, the 8 precepts, monastic ones, that's what these are going through. They avoid high and luxurious beds. Ucha sayana maha sayana. They avoid receiving gold and money, raw grains, raw meat, women and girls, male and female slaves, goats and sheep, chicken and pigs, elephants, cows, horses and mares, and fields of the land. They avoid running errands and messages, buying and selling, falsifying weights, metals, or measures, bribery, fraud, cheating, and duplicity, mutilation, murder, abduction, banditry, plunder, and violence. They're content with robes to look after the body and alms fruit to look after the belly. Wherever they go, they set out taking only these things. They're like a bird. Wherever it flies, wings are its only burden. In the same way, a mendicant is content with robes to look after the body and alms fruit to look after the belly. Wherever they go, they set out taking only these things. When they have this entire spectrum of noble ethics, they experience a blameless happiness inside themselves. When they see a sight with their eyes, here you go, Adriana, here's some more right effort for you. Okay? When they see a sight with their eyes, they don't get caught up in the features and details. What does this mean? This is sense restraint. This is part of right effort. This means that, so if you see, if you see a person who is very attractive, right? And you feel drawn to look at that person, and then you say, "Ooh, their hair! I like their hair. Their hair is curly. I like their eyes are this color, and I like the clothes that they're wearing." That's what that is what they call. What is the translation here? Features and details, right? So what that's doing is when you get wrapped up in the features and details, you create more papancha, right? You create more continuous thoughts and continuous building up of craving, right? Or it's the same thing. You go to the kitchen table and there's all kinds of food on the kitchen table, and you say, "Oh, I like this, and this. I like how this is cooked, and it's it's nice and brown, and it has this kind of toppings on, and it's really good, right?" So like all of that actually keeps you. It builds you up. It sets the groundwork for more attachment, more craving, right? So we're practicing letting go of that, right? This is so when they see a sight with their eyes, they don't get caught up in the features and details, right? This is like when the Buddha, I forgot what sutta it is. Here, I pasted. But when the Buddha is asked to teach the Dhamma in brief, and he says to the person, "In the seeing, there is only seeing. In the hearing, there is only hearing. In the smelling, there is only smelling. In the tasting, there is only tasting. In the feeling, there is only feeling." Right? In the thinking, there is only thinking. Right? So that is understood, right? This is, if you're able to investigate, you see, this is simply, I am feeling drawn to this person or to this food with craving. Let me restrain myself from papancha. Let me restrain myself from getting more involved and separate myself and detach. Right? Bahia Sutta. Thank you, Ethan. Yes. Yeah, Bahia. That's right. Before there was James, there was Sutta. There was Ethan for helping in the community find suttas real quick. Ethan was with us from the very beginning of the Sangha, of the online Sangha. Always good to see you again. All right, so now let's continue on here. Yeah. Sometimes you're just born with it. And he is born with a crazy memory. Yes. James is amazing. All right. So if the faculty of sight were left unrestrained, what? Bad, unskillful qualities of desire and aversion would become overwhelming. For this reason, they practice restraint, protecting the faculty of sight and achieving its restraint. When they hear a sound with the ears, when they smell an odor with their nose, when they taste a flavor with their tongue, when they feel a touch with their body, when they know a thought with their mind, they don't get caught up in its features and details. This is it, even when they know a thought with their mind, right? If you hear, like when we do the guided meditation and I say, acknowledge you've been distracted, practice letting go and return to the breath, right? That's what this is. That's exactly what this is. Okay, I have this mental distraction, right? I don't want to get attached to it, nor do I want to push it away, right? Because that's getting involved with it. That's building up craving. I simply want to let it go, let it be, right? To not give it any energy, right? To not get wrapped up in its features and details. This is very important. This is an integral part of the practice. If the faculty of mind were left unrestrained, bad, unskillful qualities of desire and aversion would become overwhelming. For this reason, they practice restraint, protecting the faculty of mind and achieving its restraint. When they have this noble sense of restraint, they experience the unsullied bliss inside themselves. When they act with situational awareness or clear awareness, talking about sampajanya here, when going out and coming back. This is part of Satipatthana, 4 foundations of mindfulness, right? Under Kaya Anupassana, under the body. Being fully aware of your mind and your body when doing all of these activities, going out and coming back, looking ahead and looking aside, when bending and extending the limbs, when bearing the outer robe, bowl, and robes, when eating, drinking, chewing, and tasting, when urinating and defecating, when walking, standing, sitting, sleeping, waking, speaking, and keeping silent. You can't do it when you're sleeping, but when you're awake, there's no activity that you can't practice sampajanya with. When they have this noble spectrum of ethics, this noble spectrum of contentment, and this noble spectrum of restraint, and this noble mindfulness and situational awareness, there's your right effort. This is so beautiful, right effort. So, ethics, sila, contentment, restraint, mindfulness. Now we're going to get into samadhi, samatha. They frequent secluded lodgings, a wilderness, the root of a tree, a hill, a ravine, a mountain cave, a charnel ground, a forest, the open air, a heap of straw. After the meal, they return from alms round, sit down cross-legged with their body straight and establish mindfulness right here. Giving up desire for the world, they meditate with a heart rid of desire. Cleansing the mind of desire, giving up ill will, they meditate with a mind of ill will. Full of compassion for all living beings, cleansing the mind of ill will and malevolence. Giving up dullness and drowsiness, they meditate with a mind rid of dullness and drowsiness. Perceiving light, mindful and aware, cleansing the mind of dullness and drowsiness, giving up restlessness and remorse. They meditate without restlessness, their mind peaceful inside. Cleansing the mind of restlessness and remorse, giving up doubt. They meditate having gone beyond doubt. Not undecided about skillful qualities. This is why when we hear doubt, like in the with the 5 hindrances, because that's what this is. That's what we're going through. Doubt is regard to what is skillful and what is not. I don't know what's skillful and what's not, so I'm just going to keep acting stupid, right? But then you have no doubt, okay, this is not a good thing. This is a good thing. I should act this way, not this way. They've gone beyond, they meditate having gone beyond doubt, not undecided about skillful qualities. They give up these 5 hindrances, corruptions of the heart that weaken wisdom. Then, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, now we're going right into jhana. This is the typical jhana thing. I'm going to pretty much go through this. We're almost to the end. Quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unskillful qualities, they enter and remain in the first jhana, which has the rapture and bliss born of seclusion, while placing the mind and keeping it connected. As the placing of mind and keeping it connected are stilled, they enter and remain in the second jhana, which has the rapture and bliss born of immersion, with internal clarity and confidence and unified mind, without placing the mind, keeping it connected. And with a fading away of rapture, they enter and remain in the third absorption, where they meditate with equanimity, mindful and aware, personally experiencing the bliss which the noble ones declare. Equanimous and mindful, one meditates in bliss. Having given up pain and pleasure, and entering the former happiness of sadness, they enter and remain in the fourth absorption, without pleasure or pain, with pure equanimity and mindfulness. And now we've gone from, this is the gradual path of practice. This is the gradual path of practice, starting from sila, dana, morality, going through sense restraint, practicing mindfulness, satipatthana, and now jhanas. And then once that, then When their mind becomes immersed in samadhi like this, purified, bright, flawless, rid of corruptions, pliable, workable, steady, and imperturbable, they extend their recollection. They extend it toward recollection of past lives. Now we're getting into the three knowledges. The three knowledges that the Buddha knew before he became awakened. They recollect many kinds of past lives. That is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000, 100,000 rebirths. Many eons of the world contracting, many eons of the world expanding, many eons of the world contracting and expanding. They remember, there I was named this, my clan was that, I looked like this, and that was my food. This is how I felt pleasure and pain, that was how my life ended. When I passed away from that place, I was reborn somewhere else. There too I was named this, my clan was that. I looked like this, and that was my food. This was how I felt pleasure and pain, and that was how my life ended. When I pass away from this place, I was reborn there. And so they recollect their many kinds of past lives with features and details. There's features and details that you can that you can recollect. The other features and details, when it comes to sense restraint, no. All right. When their mind has become immersed in samadhi like this, purified, bright, flawless, rid of corruptions, pliable, workable, steady, and imperturbable, they extend it towards the knowledge of death and rebirth of sentient beings. With clairvoyance that is purified and superhuman, they see sentient beings passing away and being reborn. Inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, in a good place and or a bad place, they understand how sentient beings are reborn according to their deeds. These dear beings did bad things by way of body, speech, and mind. They spoke ill of the noble ones. They had a wrong view, and they chose to act out of that wrong view. When their body breaks up after death, they're reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld, hell. These dear beings, however, did good deeds by ways of body, speech, or mind. They never spoke ill of the noble ones. They had right view, and they chose to act out of that right view. When their body breaks up after death, they're reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. And so, with clairvoyance that is purified and superhuman, they see sentient beings passing away and being reborn, inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, in a good place and a bad place. They understand how sentient beings are reborn according to their karma, their deeds. When their mind becomes, hello, James, speak of the James and he shall appear. We were just talking about you about 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. All right. They extend their knowledge to the ending of defilements. They truly understand this is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. And this is the practice leading to the cessation of suffering. An awakened being fully understands the Four Noble Truths. This is right view. They understand these are the defilements. This is the origin of the defilements. This is the cessation of the defilements. This is the practice leading to the cessation of defilements. Knowing and seeing like this, their mind is freed from defilements of sensuality, desire to be reborn, and ignorance. When they are freed, they know they're freed. They understand rebirth has ended. The spiritual journey has been completed. What had to be done has been done. There is no return to any state of existence. Nope, 51. This is called a person who, James asked, he's like, this is Majjhima Nikaya number 9, isn't it? Nope. Of course, we see this stock phrase in many suttas. So this is called a person who neither mortifies themselves or others, being committed to the practice of not mortifying themselves or others. They live without wishes in the present life, extinguished, cooled, experiencing bliss, having become holy in themselves. That is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the mendicants were happy with what the Buddha said. All right. Let's do. I'll keep an eye out on the chat for any comments or questions regarding this. And if there's nothing, then we'll do our guided meditation. We usually do our guided meditation about 9, but the sutta ran us over a little bit. Yeah, it's quite an interesting sutta. Okay. All I see is a bunch of sadhus. So that means we can do our guided meditation. So start to set your body up in a comfortable and stable position. Close your eyes. And after you're done setting yourself up in whatever posture you like, let's spend a little time scanning through the body to slowly bring our awareness from the external to the internal, and to set our bodies up in a comfortable and stable position. Bring your awareness to your bottoms of your feet, your toes. What is the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, or a cushion if you're sitting on a mat? Bring your awareness to whatever sensation, whatever feeling you can connect with in that part of your body. And if you're having trouble, you can prompt yourself by asking, what do I see? What do I feel? As you scan up the body and connect with various feeling and sensations, check to see that your posture is stable and comfortable. There's no small imbalances or pains, uncomfortable feelings. That's the time to adjust your posture, to set your body up in a way that it will not need to be moved for a good period of time, nor will it cause you extra stress or pain. Bring your awareness through your calf muscles and up to your knees. Through your thighs. And up to your buttocks, the hips and pelvis. Making sure your pelvic area is balanced in such a way that will not cause the upper body to lean or slouch back or forth. Think of the lower body as a foundation, like the foundation of a house. If it's not set up in a stable and comfortable position, the rest of the house will also not be stable, balanced, and comfortable. Bring your awareness up through your abdomen and your chest. Up to your shoulders, making sure that they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up tight. And down through your elbows and hands. Check to see that the placement of your elbows and hands support the balance of your upper body. And don't force the upper body to slouch. Every limb has an impact on the balance of your posture. And then lastly, bring your awareness up to your head. Checking that the head is not slouching, lounging one way or the other, but resting comfortably on the upper body with the chin parallel to the floor. And once you're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. From here on in, we do not wish to manipulate or control the breath in any way. This body has been breathing from the moment you were born and will continue to do so until the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply abide with the breath, to investigate it. Watch as this body breathes in and watch as it breathes out. as you're investigating the breath and you become distracted, whenever your mindfulness starts to come back and you are aware that you're not on the breath anymore, first acknowledge that you've been distracted. Practice letting go, and then return to the breath. Don't give the distraction any energy. Don't feed it. Starve it. Don't become attached to it or averse to it. Just let it be. Let it go on its way and return to the breath. After practicing for some time, you may have a strong feeling arise, such as a strong itch or a pain. And that itch or pain will distract you from your breath. But it will be so strong that you're unable to let go and return to the breath. At that point, it's okay to switch your object of awareness from the breath to that itch or that pain. Delve deeply into that itch. Investigate it thoroughly. What does it feel like? What sensations are there in the body with regards to that itch or that pain? What does an itch feel like? Do your best to observe and investigate that, to be with it, to endure it, even though it might be uncomfortable. Bring your awareness and all your faculties of investigation towards that object. Then notice how that strong itch or that pain is affecting the general tone of your mind. What is the mind like when experiencing a strong itch or pain? What is that experience? That feeling? Investigate how the mind reacts and interacts with that strong pain or itch. Observe the thoughts that arise, often related to the state of your mind during this experience of an itch or a strong pain. Almost always those thoughts are directly related to the experience, to the state of your mind, narrating the experience, making statements about how you can or you can't handle it, etc. Observe those thoughts. And observe impulses that arise, strong desires to perform an action, such as to scratch the itch or to adjust your posture to alleviate the pain. Observe these four aspects of your experience: the feeling and sensations in the body, the tone of the mind, the thoughts and impulses that arise. See how they're all interacting around this experience of this pain or itch. Feeling, mind state, thought, and impulses. Observe these characteristics of this strong itch or pain. Investigate it deeply. And then you may begin to see how it changes. Getting stronger, getting weaker, fading away. Watch as that experience fades away and ceases. And then once it's ceased, return to the breath. But however, if you continue to endure it and it's not ceasing, and you've reached your limit, you can't do it anymore, then it's okay to scratch the itch or adjust your posture. But don't lose your mindfulness and investigation. Continue with it. What is the feeling of scratching an itch? Of moving your body? How does that change the tone of your mind? The thoughts and impulses that arise? Even though you're taking action, that doesn't mean you lose your mindfulness. You continue to investigate, continue to observe how it changes, how the itch goes away, the pain ceases. What is replaced by that? And then once it ceases, return to the breath. We continue over and over to follow the breath. With minor distractions, we acknowledge, let go, and return. And with strong distractions that keep us away, we investigate that experience with our feelings, mind, thoughts, and impulses. And then return back to the breath. Always returning back to the breath. Slowly begin to bring your awareness back to the external, back to the room that you're in. Slowly opening your eyes, coming back to the stream and the chat. But trying to maintain any sense of calm and peace that you've developed through the meditation. Okay? Try to keep that going. We have a horseman who joined us. Message retracted. I don't know what the message was. Hopefully it wasn't a bad one. All right. We only have a few people left. I think we can do the normal, right? So I think what we'll do is to kind of keep it a nice chill last couple of minutes. We'll continue to read through the verses in the Samyutta Nikaya, but once that's done, I think we could go through the Dhammapada. I think going through the Dhammapada, doing some Dhammapada verses at the end of each Dhammapalooza would actually be a nice, very chill thing. You missed me saying ding instead of the bell. At least this time I had the volume pretty low for the ding. I didn't jump anybody out of it. All right, so let's continue to read as we have been. I think we're on number 21. And we'll just, the last couple minutes here in Dhammapalooza, we'll read some nice verses of Dhamma. "21, a sword. At Savatthi, standing to one side, that Devata recited this verse in the presence of the Blessed One. As if smitten by a sword, as if his head were on fire, a bhikkhu should wander mindfully to abandon sensual lust." The Buddha, as if smitten by a sword, as if his head were on fire, bhikkhu should wander mindfully to abandon identity view. So the Buddha agrees, but then he goes one up. Smitten by a sword. That's an interesting one. It reminds me of, let's see if James or if Ethan are in here. I don't remember the name, but it's where the Buddha gives the simile of the beauty queen, right? And the Buddha says, it is as if you had to hold a pot on your head going through a large crowd of people who came to hear the beauty queen sing. And there was a person behind you with a sword. And the moment you were to drop a little bit of the water out of the jug, they would take your head off, right? So as if smitten by a sword, as if your head's on fire, this is how one should practice, right? 22, it touches. It does not touch one who does not touch, but then will touch one who touches. Therefore, it touches one who touches, the one who wrongs an innocent man. If one wrongs an innocent man, a pure person without blemish, the evil falls back on the fool himself, like fine dust throwing against the wind. Throwing dust in the wind and it coming back right in your face. Yeah. 23, a tangle. Now let's see, what kind of tangles is the Buddha talking about? A tangle inside, a tangle outside. This generation is entangled in a tangle. I ask you this, O Gautama, who can disentangle this tangle? You guys have heard me say that enough, right? A man, and the Buddha replies, a man established on virtue, wise, developing the mind and wisdom. A bhikkhu ardent and discreet. He can disentangle this tangle. Those for whom lust and hatred along with ignorance have been expunged, the arhants with taints destroyed. For them the tangle is disentangled. Where name and form ceases, stops without remainder, and also impingement and perception of form. It is here that the tangle is cut. Who will untangle this tangle? Reigning in the mind, for whom whatever one reigns in the mind, from that no suffering comes to one. Should one reign in the mind from everything, one is freed from all suffering. There you go. One need not reign in the mind from everything when the mind has come under control. From whatever it is that evil comes, from this one should reign in the mind. Now this is interesting, right? Okay, so this is one of those things where, again, this is actually somebody saying to the Buddha and then the Buddha replying. So this person is saying one should reign in their mind from everything. But the Buddha says one should only reign in the mind from whatever comes evil. When the mind has come under control, then one does not need to reign in the mind from everything. So again, this is another way of saying it's not what's out there, it's what's in the mind. Right? Reigning in your mind from everything would be like trying to force everything has to be a certain way, or I have to be away from everything, right? And then I'll be peaceful. The Buddha says if your mind is reined in, then you can be anywhere and your mind is peaceful. It doesn't matter. The Arahant. If a bhikkhu is an Arahant, consummate with taints destroyed, one who bears his final body, would he still say, I speak? And would he say, they speak to me? This is interesting. Let's see. If a bhikkhu is an Arahant, consummate with taints destroyed, one who bears his final body, he might still say, I speak, and he might say, they speak to me. Skillful, knowing the world's parlance, he uses such terms as mere expressions, right? This is what we talk about, the transcendent and the convert. This is perfect because this is like, you ever seen people, maybe most of you guys haven't. I have, but some people will be like, there is no self, so I will talk it. These 5 aggregates are hungry. These 5 aggregates are tired. These 5 aggregates, right? And the Buddha is saying here, right, is like, this is kind of a missing of the mark. This is a being silly, right? This is like the Buddha is saying, no, even though one might be awakened, they still will use the common parlance. Skillful, knowing the world's parlance, he uses the terms as mere expressions, convention. When a bhikkhu is an arhat, consummate with taints destroyed, one who bears his final body, it is because he has come upon conceit that he would say, I speak. That he would say, they speak to me. Oh, is it because he has come upon conceit? So the question is like, okay, so they're awakened, but then they say that, is it because of conceit? But no, there's no conceit, because the Buddha replies, no knot exists for one with conceit abandoned. For him, all knots of conceit are consumed. Though the wise one has transcended the conceived, he might still say, I speak. He might say too, they speak to me. Skillful, knowing the world's parlance, he uses such terms as mere conventions. Very important. Very important. Don't be silly. Don't be one of those people that's like, these 5 aggregates are hungry. These 5 aggregates are tired of this Dhamma talk. Right, don't be silly. Common parlance is important. So let's do one more. Sources of light. How many sources of light are there in the world, by means of which the world is illuminated? Okay, so how many sources of light are there in the world, by means of which the world is illuminated? We have come to ask the Blessed One, how are we to understand it? There are 4 sources of light in the world. A 5th one is not found here. The sun shines in the day. The moon glows at night. A fire flares up here and there, both by day and at night. But the Buddha is the best of those that shine. His light is unsurpassed. A 5th one is not found, meaning you cannot see the Buddha's path. Just like you cannot see an Arahant's path. Like a bird in the sky, right? All right, friends, I think it's time. It's just about 10 o'clock. Let's do our final merits. So I'll do the Pali and then the English. Dukkha patta chaniddukkha, bhaya patta chanibhaya, soka patta chanisoka, hontu sabbe pipaneyo, ettavata cha mehi sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya, akasatta chabummatta deva nagam yaka mahiddhika, Punyang tang anumoditva cherang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired, for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, Devas, Nagas, and Yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends. Have a good week. If you'd like, you can join us on this channel here every morning, 8 a.m. Eastern, except for Sundays, for our monastery experience of precepts, chanting, and a little Dhamma talk every morning at 8. And I will see you next week, same time, here for Dhammapalooza. I wish you a very spiritually successful and peaceful week. Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy, practice well, and be well.